Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, except for the ones who believe and they do actions, good actions, and they advise for haqq, they advise for the good, and then they advise for sabr. So three things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when a person is doing, his time is not in loss. Then his time has been utilized fruitfully in the best way possible. So these verses, this surah in the Quran, it's a very powerful verse. We sometimes don't realize that we become very materialistic. We get attached to the dunya and the reasons of the dunya. If it makes sense to me, then it will only happen. If it doesn't make sense, then it can't happen. And we become so materialistic, we only value things that are of the dunya. When we see a nice house with, 5-car garage, a very big house, we know that this is a valuable house. We see a nice car, a very nice car, we're gonna have some type of inclination. We're gonna know that this is a very valuable car. But as soon as the thing that you're trying to see, you lose sight of it, you can't see it anymore. Now, in order for you to believe that that thing has value, you have to have belief in it. You have to just believe that this thing holds value. Once you lose sight of it. This is why it is in the major beliefs and fundamental principles in our religion that we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we have full conviction, yaqeen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we know this is part of a mu'min, a believer. He cannot be materialistic. He has to have an attachment for the ghaib, for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised, whether he can see it or not. He cannot stay materialistic. So this is a very important aspect in our religion, to have this yaqeen. Continuing the topic, the subject that was happening in the Jummah khutbah, for those of us who are here who may not remember, the topic was on renewing our iman. We know it is a new year, a new Islamic year. It is 1444 after Hijri, which means that it has been 1,444 years since Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated. Many of us don't even know the origin of the Islamic calendar. Where did the Islamic calendar come from, and what is the importance of the Islamic calendar? We can discuss it, inshallah. The Islamic calendar, there was no such thing as Islamic years at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You'll never find a hadith in where it says, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that in the 4th year after Hijri, or in the 8th year after Hijri, this and this. No, there was no such thing as a calendar at the time. When Umar radiallahu anhu, during his, when he was Khalifa, and he was conquering the lands and Islam was expanding, one leader, one general, his name was Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, for those of you who are familiar. He was also a general, and he sent a letter to Umar radiallahu anhu, and he said that we are conquering the lands, and while we're expanding, we have to sign the papers of the non-believers. And on their papers, they have their own types of dates, and they have their own calendar and their own dates. And we don't like that we follow their timing. They're based off of incorrect things. So Umar radiallahu anhu, because of this concern, he gathered every council member and he spoke to them and he asked them that we need to begin our own calendar. And I need your opinion on where we should begin this calendar from. And some people said that we should start it from the birth year of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some people said that we should start the date from after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But it came to Umar radiallahu anhu that it should be after the migration. After the migration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslimin, the early Muslimin, this should be the first date, the first year of the Islamic calendar. Now, two reasons we can understand that why Umar radiallahu anhu, he chose this calendar, this time, the migration, to be the first beginning of the year. Number one is because for all the Muslimin to always recognize and remember the Hijri, that it was a very ordeal, a great expedition in our Islamic history, the Hijri of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the migration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is just about the origin of the Islamic calendar and how it started. So we were discussing, I remember last week, regarding theism and atheists, about how so many of our youth and of so many, even just general population, most people are not believing in any religion anymore, right? They are all becoming either atheists or they're into, theism. What's theism? In believing in a higher power. And atheist is what? The opposite of that. A person who does not have any belief that there is any higher power. So we know that a mu'min, a believer, he cannot be materialistic. His beliefs cannot only be through what's around him, in front of him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it such that we believe in the unseen, we believe in the hereafter. So the atheist, what we should really call him is a materialistic person. He only believes in the things of the world. He only believes of the reasoning of the world. If it makes sense, the world can make sense out of it, then it happened. If scientists can prove it, then this is definitely true. So that's why to them, the world is materialistic, but Allah or God is philosophy, right? As for the believer, this world, although it is materialistic, but it's really just a philosophy to the believer. He knows that this dunya is just a moment's time where I'm in, right? And the actual haqq to a believer is in the unseen, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like the reverse, right? That's why some of our teachers, they sometimes say that to bring an atheist into Islam is very easy. It's very easy to bring an atheist to Islam. Why? Because they already believe in half of the kalima. They believe la ilaha, there's no deity, period. But that's all they believe. Illallah is all they need to add. Just 2 more words they need to add. Just the thing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about in the surah a valuable asset, and that is time. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in regards to that, when it comes to understanding what's important and what's not, insan is lost when it comes to time. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, he says something, very beautiful. He says that the bid'ah of our time, the bid'ah of our time and our zamana is wasting time, is becoming lazy. That the Sahaba, they were never lazy. They would, no matter what opportunity, little or small, they would chase it in order to chase some hasanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it says, ittaqun nara walau bi shiqqi tamara. That save yourself from the fire, even if it is bi shiqqi tamara, a piece of a date. Even if it is through a part of a date that you will give into sadaqah, into charity, and that will be the means of you to save yourself from fire. So what is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam telling us? That in every opportunity we have in life, in this time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that we are constantly in loss, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, all you should be doing is a'mal, which in the surah how it comes, amil as-salihat, and ittaqun nara walau bi shiqqi tamra. To free yourself from the wrath of Allah, free yourself from the fire, even if it is through a piece of a date. So when the Sahaba, they saw an opportunity, whether it be little or small or big, they contributed towards that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wants to describe the hypocrites, how does He describe them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, قَامُوا كُسَالًا إِذَا قَامُوا لِلصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالًا. That it is from the attributes and the qualities of who? A munafiq. That when he stands up for salah, he stands up lazy. And if now we ask each other that why is it that we are not consistent on our salah, most of us will have the same answer. This is the answer that we have. We're lazy. we just don't feel like we have the energy to get up off our couch and head to the bathroom, roll up our sleeves, make wudu, take off our socks, right? Honestly, this is the answer. We just are lazy. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He perfectly says and tells the believers that look at the signs of the munafiqun, that when they stand up for salah, they stand up lazy. So we were talking about this aspect of not being lazy, that we have that ability, we have the resources, that we are just not doing things. We come to the masjid, we pray, and we catch the salah with the jama'ah, but we don't feel spiritually that we are getting better. Or maybe we keep praying at home and we don't have the energy, or we don't ever get the energy to get up and come to the masjid. Regardless of whatever level we are at in terms of our deen, we need to learn and we need to focus on moving forward. And continuing the topic of the morning, one of the ways for us to move forward is to renew our intentions. Imam Ashraf Ali Thanwi, he says something very great in his introduction of his book. He says that when you do an action, make intention for that action 3 times. In the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. So that what will happen is that you really secure this action for doing that. That you make sure that you got the hasanat of this action. So my first message is that the first thing we should work towards is renewing our intentions. Niyyah is the first thing that comes. With renewing our iman, renewing our intention. And there's 3 aspects to intention that we should work towards, and this is how we know that we have the proper intention. Number 1 is the fact of being firm that I really do want to do this, and I really want to make this intention. This is a hard thing to do. That once we make sure that, inshallah, I'm going to increase in my a'mal, increase in my way of getting closer to Allah, once we make this intention, we have to make sure that we are firm. And the second thing about intention, in order for us to make sure that we fully utilize and we are fully able to get the blessings from Allah, the acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to make sure that intention, it maintains sincerity. It has ikhlas. It has the quality of ikhlas in it. That I'm only doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the second thing that we need to make sure we have in our intention. And thirdly, the last thing that we should make sure that we do in our intention is the fact of renewing our intention after this. That intention from a spiritual standpoint. If we look at the Islamic books and the books that, they come for self-rectification, you'll see that the first subject that is always covered in any book that's written by an Islamic author on the chapter of Tarbiyah, the first thing that will come is intention, because that is truly where we need to begin from. If our intention is corrupt, then nothing can change. But if our intention is sincere, then even through little effort, but having that sincere intention will cause us to, inshallah, increase in our iman. I remember when we were doing Allama Shami, a great author on the Hanafi fiqh, he has in his book in the introduction regarding the same thing, renewing your intention. And he says that a person, he should renew his intention every month for his marriage. So we asked our teachers that why does a person need to renew his intentions every month for his marriage? So he gave a couple explanations, but 2 explanations that stood out. The first explanation he gave was that this statement that make sure you renew your intention of your marriage every month, it was more geared towards the common people. And back home, he said that you'll find people that they're very loose with their tongue. They're very loose with their language. They're in the relaxation of their home, and they could get very loose with their tongue in the house and maybe use some vulgar language. And then because of that, they may end up saying some statements of kufr. You understand? So in order for you to make sure your marriage is okay, you should renew your intentions every month. Because, why is that? Because potentially, if we say something that is from kufr, from the words of disbelief, then that could lead to us having that time of kufr, and that could make your marriage nullified. This was a serious thing that came up in the book. Imam Shami, he said this. So I remember the students, they said that if we say this to the public, if we tell the people that they should be so careful, then everyone's gonna run away from marriage. No one's gonna want to get married. Then what I have to renew my intention like this every month. But what does that do? When we renew our intentions, not only does it save our marriage, but it saves us from our iman, from those mistakes that we can end up making from those words. So renewing our intention can also be renewing our iman. It could be just us saying the kalima again. All of us should be in the habit of this, that every time, maybe every morning, renew your iman, renew your faith with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, on the same topic of time, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears by time, and He talks about the importance of time. One thing we can understand from our deen, when we look into our deen, it is really all time-based as well. If we look at the 5 pillars of Islam, our salah, our zakah, our hajj, these are all time-based. They all come mawquta, at a certain time. We know that the salah is at a certain time for sure, but also the zakah and the hajj. So it's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that the only thing that matters is what you are doing in the moment, in that time. If there's a fard upon you in that moment, are you fulfilling it or not? This is the only test that is really on you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says regarding that insan is at loss. Insan, he is at loss unless he is fulfilling those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put on him in a timely manner. So, as a Muslim, we should understand that our deen, it is directly related to time. The timing is very important to the Muslim, to the believer. That the believer is the one who is just concerned from one timing of salah to the next timing of salah. And in between that timing, what is he doing? So, just like how we understand that this deen, now that we understand that the deen is directly related to us being timely, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He asks for us of certain things and obligations on a certain time, we should understand the worth of time. That we can't waste this time. That the difference between a believer and a non-believer is how he is using his time. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what did he say? He said that the one who does any kind of sin, a zani, a person who does either is involved in adultery, involved in gambling, all of these things, yes, he's a sinner, but he is not a kafir. A Muslim who repents, he can never be a kafir. But a person who intentionally leaves out salah when the timing has come in, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. Then he has definitely done kufr. So, the tariq salah, the one who leaves salah, is the one who is in this khusr Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. And we should remember the 3 attributes, the 3 things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that they can never be in loss. And those are, after insan is in loss, doing good a'mal, and not only doing good a'mal for yourself, what the tawasul means to each other, advising the haqq, the truth, and also what tawasul bis-sabr, advising patience in, of course, anger comes for patience, and patience in our nafs, to hold our nafs. This is the only person who has not wasted time. We know that the person that enters Jannah, he will be the happiest person, except for one gham, just one worry that he'll have, one sadness he'll have. And that is from directly related to the surah, right? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he is in loss. So even the Jannati, even the person who is in paradise, this is the only gham that he will have, that will be left for him to feel saddened about. And that is the waste of time. That why didn't I spend that second or that moment in my life in the ibadat of Allah? And we were talking about the Islamic calendar, and many of us, we discussed about the origin of where the Islamic calendar came from. And knowing that timing is very important, we should understand that, of course, an Islamic calendar, which we could, take the time and calculate the time from, is also very important for the Muslim. He should know that where is the Islamic calendar from? How did it begin? Why was it the first year chosen from the Hijri year we discussed? But also we should understand that from this Islamic calendar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made certain months more sacred. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made certain months better than the other. The same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has added more sacred timings in our day, and more sacred timings also in our months, in our year. So to the believer, the timing is everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it that the obligations come at a certain time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also made it that better moments in the year are at a certain time of the year as well. We know that Ramadan is the best month of the year. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Ramadan better than any other month. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also, through His fadl, given us even more months where we can easily get closer to Allah and renew our faith with Allah. And Muharram is one of those years, one of those months that we are in now, right? What are the 4 sacred months of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have the Hijjah, right? We just crossed it, right? And another thing that we should understand, what are the first? We'll go to the first 4. The Hijjah, the Qa'dah, Muharram, and Rajab. Ramadan is not part of that, right? These are separate 4 months. Another thing that we should know, that we know that Muharram is the first of the month, and the Islamic calendar, when does it begin? The first year was what? The year of the Hijri, right? Who knows what month Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did the Hijri? What month he came exactly? It wasn't Muharram. It wasn't the first month. Although that would make sense if the Islamic calendar is starting from the Hijri date, then why is it Muharram the first month, right? But that is not the month where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated from. Who can tell me that? Which month was it? It was Rabi al-Awwal, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam arrived to Medina for the first time. In Dhul Hijjah, the Ansar, they came for the Hajj. They came to visit Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during that time, and they invited Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Medina, to come to Medina. And Rabi al-Awwal is when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam arrived. But Muharram, the reason why the calendar doesn't start from Rabi al-Awwal, even though Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came in Rabi al-Awwal, and the reason why it starts from Muharram is because when the Ansar came in Dhul Hijjah, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made his intention for the Hijri in Muharram. This is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you are going to plan this Hijri and you're going to do this Hijri with your followers. So it was the month of Muharram when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had made the intention of doing the Hijri. So we should understand from these few lessons, inshallah, that the importance of time, and Muharram is the month that is the month Allah says it is His month. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sworn by many things, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in specific swore by Asr, and He made Surah Al-Asr its own one surah. It came all at once and it is separate. So this shows us that this swearing of a whole surah is much more bigger. It is much more severe. There's much more important and lesson for us to understand from the swearing of time by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Muharram, it teaches us from looking at the lesson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that this is the time where we need to renew our intentions so that we can renew our iman. And in that way, we can feel like we are, getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a new year. If we look at the industries around us, the people around us, they have the New Year resolution that it's a new year, so I'm going to do new practices. And one of the most common one is that I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to make sure I lose these pounds. And they always do it on the 1st, January 1st. This is when I'm going to make this resolution. It can't happen in the middle of the year, at the end of the year. This is a very important thing for me, and I'm going to start from the 1st of the year. And what I think the reason why they end up doing it at the end of at the end of the year is because by the time December 31st comes, they're so depressed, they're so down. They said, this is it. This is where I'm going to change. They have their Thanksgiving turkey, they have their Christmas dinner, they have their Halloween, all the candies, they had their finals exam. Some college students maybe, they binged through eating chips and chocolate the whole way through. And they gained all these pounds, and now they know that I have to change. So they make a resolution for the new year. But for the Muslim, his resolution can be at any time, in any place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that every single place on earth is a masjid, a place where you can ask and make sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we don't need to, wait the entire year for us to change, especially when it comes to our iman and it comes to our aspect of making tawbah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what did he say about the person who does an evil deed? That right away follow it up with a good deed. Some of us, we don't feel like it feels right. It doesn't feel right. I just did something so wrong. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the Muslim, loves the believer who right away makes tawbah and does some good deed, does some sadaqah, comes to the masjid for salah. Right? This will remove that evil deed. And on top of that, I was mentioning the khutbah that we should ponder over the virtues that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in these simple things that we need to do either way as a Muslim, right? If we don't do them, we are sinful. If we do them, then we are saved. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need our prayers. We are not giving anything to Allah by doing our prayers. We understand this. So the Muslim that understands the fada'il, all the virtues behind the deeds that he is already going to do, that Muslim will be able to stay steadfast, and he will be able to keep wanting to come back and do that deed over and over again because he knows the good, the khair in it. This is why it was from the practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to always remind the believers of their promise of what's coming. Especially we see this with the early Muslims. Because they were going through sufferings that none of us can even imagine. None of us can even think that for the sake of religion that you're going to be, locked up and starved and tortured. So what would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell them? He would say that their fadila, what is the virtue for your suffering? Jannah. You are getting Jannah for this. So we understand that it is important for each and every single one of us to go out and learn the fada'il of anything that we want to do, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to act upon whatever has been said. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the people of the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding of the Quran so that way we can come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more sincerely. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa lisa'il muslimin fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
So, one moment, so you had mentioned about the importance of Muharram. So, how about could you also tell us about the fasting that we can do in Muharram.
Yes. So I mentioned this hadith. This hadith is, you could say one of the most important hadith regarding the month of Muharram. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said the month of Allah is the month of Muharram. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the best fast is in the fast of Muharram. So any fast that you do in the fast of Muharram, whichever day it may be, is the best time to do the fasting. So we know that Ramadan is fard for us to fast, whether we want to or not, but it is fard. And we will get the reward for this. A question comes that a person, he does the fast of Ramadan, will he get the same reward as a person who anticipates more reward? Right? I was talking about the importance of fadilah. So many of the ulama, they say that from the hadith Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am how my believer expects from me, or what my believer thinks of me. So the more fadilah, the more virtues we know in our action and we have belief in them, the more reward that we will get. So from the fasting, the best fasting that you can do besides the fast of Ramadan, because that's something we have to do. But in any time of the year, the best fast is in the fast in the month of Muharram. And then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam also talks about the best timing of the day to pray, the best prayer of the day. The best prayer of the day after the faridah, after the fara'id, is the salatul layl, is the prayer of the night. That is the two best things. So in regards to prayer, the best prayer you can do after faridah is the hajjud prayer. And in regards to the fasting, the best fasting you can do after the month of Ramadan is fasting in the month of Muharram. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam also says, in regards to the fasting of, specifically on the day of Ashura, on the 10th of Muharram, ahtasibu ala Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends that He forgives 1 year of sins, qabla, from before. 1 year of sins are forgiven from the fasting on the day of Ashura. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, more importantly, never left this out. And when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam never leaves any action out, we can understand that that action can be fard. It could be a fard. And it was a fard, right? We know that it was a fard. So that's why it makes sense that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam never left it out either. But afterwards, after I think the second year of Hijri, when the fasting of Ramadan became compulsory, the fasting of Ashura became optional, became a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So any day in this month is a great day to fast, and the best fast in this day and this month is Yawm Ashura, since that is the fast that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam never left, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives 1 year of sins from before. And this is obviously the minor sins. We should understand that the major sins are not to be forgiven except with tawbah, with istighfar, with asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should know what the major sins are. There isn't so many major sins, right? The general principle in Islam, and the ulama, they all understand, is first of all where we take ahkam from, right? We know we take first of all from Kitabullah, and then from Sunnah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then ijma', where the Sahaba and the Tabi'een come in. What do they follow? And then we have something called qiyas, right? The fourth. So when something comes from the Quran, first and foremost, we listen to the Quran. I forgot why I said this. Like any questions? Two. Yes. Two. Yes. Yawm Ashura. So every time I say 10 days, I should always remember the hadith. Yes, hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. إنه يوم تعظمه اليهود والنصارى. فإن Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that what? That the Sahabi came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said that this is a day that is what? very great to the Yahud and the Nasara, to the Christians and the Jews. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on that note, knowing that if the Yahud and Nasara, if they both find it great that for the Jews it was Musa alayhi salam that was saved, right? And if they find it great, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that if I am alive, I will fast Yom al-Tasi', the 9th day, right? If I'm alive next year. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it comes from the narration of Ibn Abbas. He says, the next year did not come hatta tuwfiya Rasulullah, until the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he passed away. So which means that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself never got to do the fast of the 9th of Muharram, but he had the intention that next year he is alive, and he said this specifically, almost to give like ishara that if I'm alive, I will fast on the next year. So we can fulfill the intention of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam by also fasting on the 9th and the 10th day. That will be much more rewarding, inshallah. The 9th is Sunday, and the 10th is Monday, is coming, inshallah. So the day after tomorrow and the day after that, inshallah, we should make intention to fast from now, inshallah.
So the importance of a surah Asr. So surah Asr is about time. So it tell me like, and it's also our it's also the third prayer. Salatul Wusta. So tell me like, is there any? So can we derive from the 5 prayers? So like, do they reflect like a person's life also? So that when the person is born, so it is pleasure. So when the person is growing up, so it is like and when the person reaches his Shabab, it's like when they are at the peak of their youth, and when things begin to go downhill, and when the Asr time comes in. So Asr is like a time of day that is extremely busy, because all the day has passed, so that there is only little time, and it is a time to do the business also. So that's like all the things that you have to do, you have to finish, and then you get Maghrib. So it's old age. So it's like gets dark at this time, and the light continues to recede, and then finally there is like Isha. So has it been mentioned in the books of Tafsir that this should be clarity?
I couldn't connect the young age and old age that you were talking
No,
about.
so like I'm thinking that like a day begins and the day ends. So is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, is there a tafsir that is actually talking about the person life also? Because I feel that after when you are in the middle age, it is like the asr. So it is like an asr for us. So because then we don't have time. So because we have wasted our time, we have wasted our time for our youth. So what we have, so this time for us, people who are older, maybe older than 50, I'll say. So it is their time. So their time is extremely important for them, because they have to prepare for the day. They have to, and then before they get too old, and then you can die anytime. You really don't know how much time that you have. So for people, so it's like asar. So that I always feel that we really have to do as much as we can to because we are going to prepare. We want to use all our time to get good deeds.
There's a verse that I just remember the part of the verse. That's not the Islam. Is the Asr Salat. So that's the order from Allah Subhanahu.
This is what I was going to say. That the tafsir talking about, it's not in wal asr, it's in hafidu ala salawati wa salati wusta. Right? But there is one opinion of Surah Al-Asr that it can also talk about the timing of the days. Not specifically the Asr Salah. This is not, wal asr is timing. This is, I don't think there's an opinion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is specifically swearing by the timing of the Asr Salah in which the day of the time comes. I haven't read it anywhere at least. Maybe if someone else has read, have you read that? Wal Asr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by the Asr timing of the day.
That's the time. That Surah Asr is the specific relationship to the time,
What the
not
time?
to the Asr Salah. But the other words that I quoted is in relation to the specifically to the Asr Salah. The Surah Al-Asr is specifically talking about the time, not the Salatul Asr. Whereas the Quranic words that I quoted was specifically for the Salatul Asr.
Turn it off.
So the thing is humans, I mean, it's our nature that we will like, we don't value things that until they are gone. So we don't value our health until we get sick. And there's a hadith also about this, about the like a time that value your health before it's gone, value your money before it's gone. So there's a hadith also. So the thing is that, so the lesson for us is that, like an older people, is that we don't have that much time. So we shouldn't take it for granted. I mean, is it for like, this is for everybody, but especially for us like older. So that because we can still do something. If somebody gets sick and they get bedridden, so like they really can't do anything. But for us, so like whenever I see like read Surah Asr, this comes to me.
Yeah, the Surah Asr can hit the old people more. Is that what you're trying to say?
But Brother Sahabi is to jump.
But he feels like he's
You
getting
don't
older.
have to worry about yet.
Inshallah.
The thing is actually better, and this is we're telling our youth also. So it
Right.
is better.
But death has no age,
Younger.
right? Death does not have a number, it does not have an age. So we think we have time, and this is also what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that insan is in khusr about, he's in loss about. That he thinks he has so much time, and sooner than he knows it, his time has finished. So really, we don't know how much time we have. This is why I said that the most important thing in Islam is what you are doing today, not what you did yesterday. What you did yesterday is what you make istighfar for, and what you have intention for tomorrow, you make firm intention, like the steps of intention that we talked about today. But if a person, he wants to know the condition of what he will, maybe the condition he will die upon, or the condition that he will be in even tomorrow, all the person needs to look at is what he is doing today. That's why Allah, He does not ask us to do things later. Allah asks us to do things now. When the time comes, fas'au, rush and go. When the salah time comes, go. When you have enough means of your wealth, start making an account of it and make sure that once the 1 year passes, you give your zakat so that the rest of your money is halal. Otherwise, the rest of your wealth is fasad. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants that we do things on time, because death is untimely.
were small, and Saab will tell you what I taught them when they were very small. So can you read that? Saab? Are you there?
He's thinking. He's not sure.
Come here. He will tell you what I told all my children when they were small. That phrase out is
About what?
Barakah.
About time? Drop us your father's gems.
He says, if you don't respect time, time will not respect you.
Oh.
Always respect.
So, yeah. Something similar to what my father would say.
On the Yom Ashura, I read somewhere that one thing was that Musa alayhi salam was saved through the ocean.
Right.
And the other thing we heard, I'm not sure whether I haven't read it lately, but this was the time other thing happened too.
Something.
The example said that even Adam alayhi salam was sent to
Right.
the earth on
It
this
happened
day,
in Muharram.
and they also said there was the Qiyamah will happen on the
Oh.
on this day. There's some more thing that were.
Yeah, there's some. I read also that Nuh alayhi salam, his ark, it landed on this day on the.
It ended
Right.
the 100 that day.
Right.
Other things happened on this day, and then in our Islamic history, very important event happened that day when grandson of Prophet ﷺ, he was killed.
Yes.
Imam Hussein, and the big sect of Islam, Shia, they really mourn this day.
This is a big parade day. I was in New York, and if you guys don't know, in New York they have one of the biggest Shia communities. So they are actually allowed to go on the streets of Queens, and they do this for like 8 hours on the 10th of Muharram, Yom Ashura. The states allows them, and it's a full black parade. I would see this every year. Every year we would go out and make fun of them. We would go laugh. But the madrasa kids, all of them would come out in white, and we was like we were reversing the Shia. They're all in black, and we all had our full white put on. But yeah, they would every year they would come and they would beat themselves, and this is when I first heard of this.
Besides all that, for us and not the youth, the lesson to learn. And the people who died that day, Hussein died that day, and the people who were opposing them, this the big lesson to them. How you scared, how you stand, how you don't bend for anything they offer you. Exactly. And do not stop saying the right thing, no matter what.
Even if it's death.
Right. So there is this lesson to all of us that even if the grandson of Prophet that he gave his life, but he never went. No, this is not right. So to speak up against the tyrant. So the lesson learned.
Right.
I know many of us shy away to discuss this stuff.
Yeah.
But the lesson.
There's many lessons to learn from the lives of the grandson of these ones.
I remember when we were young, I still have a feeling, from 9th and the 10th, our mother makes sure that we listen to the person of the land, and make us understand what happened. We still have that strong feeling, but unfortunately, the youth, this young age, they don't get this.
They have to, the only youth that I see that understand the Seerah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam are the ones who themselves were moved by it. They wanted to learn. Sadly, we don't have it in our educational systems, right? If a person does not come to the masjid and he just stays in the American system his whole life, may Allah protect our families, that means 18, 20 years he's going to be educated, but not a single ounce of Qala Nabi or Qala Allah Ta'ala or the Quran or any of it. So that person will, he will definitely lose sight. So most of the students that I know that are, very aware of the history and the seerah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the post-history after Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam passed away, are those kids, alhamdulillah, from the efforts of the masjids and the efforts of the teachers that they go and learn. So this is why in the khutbah, we can't teach you what the history is, but we can put that sense of encouragement of going and learning.
It's a big loss.
It's a very big loss. And the Muslims can understand a lot about their religion from this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq to act upon our religion. Jazakumullahu khairan. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. What time is it?
Time is